It's fascinating to get scared. It really is. When Freddy traps his victims in the dream reality and kills them with his bladed glove, or we witness Jack Torrance trying to kill his family with an axe, we love the adrenaline rush in our bodies that can never be explained in just a few words. But there are some cult classic horror movies that every horror fan should revisit at least once in his lifetime to witness the amazing effort the directors have put together to create such a plethora of gems. So today in this video, we'll count down our top 15 movies that you should revisit for the sake of nostalgia and pure horror. But before we get into the video, please like and subscribe to our channel to get a daily dose of entertainment. The Thing, 1982. Dogs are the most trusted and loyal animals we love to have as our pets. But what if one of these adorable animals you love turns out to be a shape-shifting alien with the potential to destroy the entire Earth once it comes in contact with any living force on the planet? Sounds pretty disturbing, right? Directed by John Carpenter, in this 1982 science fiction horror movie, The Thing, a group of American scientists find a sled dog in the wilderness of Antarctica and keep it in their base camp. But to their surprise, the dog turns out to be a shape-shifting alien who has been on the loose after the Norwegian scientists excavated its spacecraft buried under the ice for thousands of years. Slowly, the creature starts impersonating another scientist in the base camp, making it harder to identify the Thing, creating a paranoid atmosphere. Starring Kurt Russell as U.S. helicopter pilot McReady, this movie is a masterpiece in building suspense, gore, and perfect scary moments using masterful cinematography and creative visual effects that make it a cult classic even more than 40 years after its release on the silver screen. Alien, 1979. Only very few films have the criteria to match the legacy of Ridley Scott's iconic 1979 space horror movie Alien. The movie follows the story of a space crew getting stuck with an extraterrestrial creature that leads its way into the spacecraft by leeching itself on a crew member's face. The famous chest-buster scene, or the crew's discovery that an android alien is hiding among them, are definitely the scariest moments in the movie. They make you wonder if we mere humans can stand up against these powerful creatures in the void of space. This is a horrifying tale of isolation, survival, xenophobia, and the mystery of the universe that humans have yet to solve. With its amazing costumes, production design, great acting led by the amazing Sigourney Weaver, and mind-numbing visual effects, this movie can give you one of the best cinematic experiences in the history of cinema.
Give me the power, I beg of you!
Child's Play, 1988. Nothing quite matches the fright of witnessing your childhood friends succumb to demonic possession, a force nobody wants to confront. From Annabelle to Megan, these creepy dolls have been pop culture icons for decades. But no one can match up to the terrors created by Chucky. This famous doll has appeared in multiple movies, reboots, television series, and comics, but the original 1988 movie Child's Play is still remembered as one of the scariest movies ever. The movie tells the story of a fugitive serial killer, Charles Lee Ray, who possesses a doll by using a voodoo chant after he gets killed by police officers during an encounter. Then, after that, he finds his way into the hands of 6-year-old Andy and starts destroying his life by putting him in danger. This innocent-looking doll kills its victims and haunts them to fulfill its devilish desires. The scariest part is that he does everything through the body of a toy. With his unpredictable moves, killer instincts, and amazing sound design, it's a scary movie that can give you chills whenever you watch it.
Please, God.
A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. Imagine you're having a nightmare, and suddenly your dream turns into reality, where a demon starts butchering you like a piece of meat. Nightmare on Elm Street is the story of a few teenagers who start getting haunted by the spirit of Freddy Krueger, who is burned to death by their parents for murdering innocent kids back in the day. Usually, horror movies portray supernatural entities in different movie franchises with some physical or psychological presence in reality. But in Elm Street, writer-director Wes Craven depicts a powerful entity that turns you into an insomniac, because if you dare to sleep, you'll end up dead at his hands. This movie is an all-time fan favorite because of its unpredictability, suspense, and gore, which are enough to give you nightmares for the rest of your life. Made on a limited budget of just $1.1 million, this film became such a phenomenal success that it saved New Line Cinema from bankruptcy and instantly turned Freddy Krueger into a pop culture icon. Friday the 13th, Jason Lives, 1986. No one can forget the iconic background score when Jason appears on the screen. This musical score is enough to numb the bones while watching this iconic movie, which is still popular among moviegoers. Though this hit series has almost 12 films, critics and fans consider the fourth film to be a much superior movie in terms of horror and how it reshaped the franchise's theme by making Jason the supernatural entity who never really dies in any circumstances. When Tommy goes back to the cemetery to dig the grave of Jason and set fire to his dead body, Jason comes back to life through an accident and starts haunting him and his friends all over again. But this is the first time the movie gives Jason iconic superhuman strength and turns the movie into one of the best slasher movies ever made. Another reason you should rewatch this movie is that it's a fun movie filled with some terrifying jump scares, funny moments, and an iconic villain still popular during Halloween. Pet Sematary, 1989. Stephen King is undoubtedly the master of horror, but according to him, Pet Sematary was the book that scared him the most. This 1889 adaptation of King's novel became a cult classic because it portrays an unapologetic, wicked, and quirky story in an eerie environment. Even though this movie doesn't do any justice to King's fantastic book, director Mary Lambert tries to do her best by showcasing some horrifying scenes in the movie. This movie is a perfect example of how greed can be a cautionary tale for all of us. After moving into a new house, Dr. Lewis Creed loses his cat in an accident. The cat comes back to life after he buries it in the nearby pet cemetery. But suddenly, his son dies in a similar accident, making him repeat the same incident in the greed of getting his son back to life. Of course, his son does return from the grave, but is possessed by a satanic entity. This movie is a creepy and scary tale of human needs and desires that tend to put us in danger. If you're looking for a good old movie with a simple storyline filled with an eerie vibe, you can always rewatch this movie. Poltergeist, 1980. Directed by Tobe Hooper, who also directed another famous slasher hit, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and written by Steven Spielberg, Poltergeist became a major critical and commercial success in 1982. Imagine being the parents of young kids, and you get to find out that your kids are having a play date with some playful ghosts in your home. Would you let your kids play with the ghosts? Sounds like a terrible plan, doesn't it? However, for Steve and Diane, it all starts with little frisky things, but later turns into a sinister intervention by the ghosts. Later, the ghosts disappear from their kids and force them to leave their house. The movie even got 3 Oscar nominations for its amazing sound effects, visual effects, and original score. It won the Saturn Award for Best Horror Movie in 1983. Since then, Poltergeist has inspired many filmmakers and given birth to many sequels and reboots in recent years. The Shining, 1980. From the excellent acting performances of Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall to the controversial directional style of Stanley Kubrick, The Shining has been the talk of the town for over the last few decades. Known for its gritty and genuinely scary moments, The Shining keeps you on the edge of your seat throughout the film. This is another Stephen King adaptation on our list. It tells the story of Jack Torrance, a writer who takes on the job of caretaker in the Overlook Hotel during winter. After getting the job, he moves into the hotel with his wife, Wendy, and son, Danny, to spend the entire winter there. But soon after they move into the hotel, sinister things start to unfold, and Jack turns into a psycho killer. This is a masterpiece of human psychology, isolation, psychological issues, and some supernatural elements that make you fall in love with this movie. Some of the scenes in the movie, like Danny cycling through the corridors of the hotel, the twin sisters, and Wendy's iconic screams while Jack is trying to break the door, are some of the best Shining moments in the history of cinema forever. Evil Dead 2, 1987. Directed by the legendary Sam Raimi, Evil Dead 2 acts as both a sequel and a reboot of his first Evil Dead film. Though nothing is complex or different from the first film, this movie is made on a bigger budget and with better VFX, most of which is done using stop-motion animation. But this movie manages to build a sinister atmosphere in the woods. Bruce Campbell manages to recreate the magic from the first installment and perfectly plays the role of Ashley Williams. The movie begins with Ash taking his girlfriend Linda deep into the forest cabin to spend some quality time together, but unfortunately falling into the traps of the Necronomicon, a book capable of demonic powers. Ash tries his best to escape from his possessed girlfriend, and the film follows the story. This film truly is an example of Sam Raimi's greatness as a master director, revamping his own original movie by adding the flavor of comedy in this second installment. And boy, the results turned out to be an astounding success.
Begin.
The Fly, 1986. In the world of comics, many scientists have turned themselves into different supervillains with animalistic behaviors and powers. But in this 1986 sci-fi horror film starring the brilliant Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis, a peculiar yet brilliant scientist, played by Jeff, creates a machine to teleport living things from one destination to another. But while he was trying to experiment on himself, he accidentally teleports a fly with him. Though initially he gains strength, agility, and stamina, later he starts turning into a fly. This makes him lose his sanity and turns him into a real-life villain who is not even reluctant to kill his girlfriend or his unborn baby to fulfill his desires. If you're a fan of horror movies, you can revisit this movie anytime you want. Not because it's a movie filled with unnecessary jump scares or gore, but because you can witness the psychological horror a human brain can produce to showcase its need. With his metamorphosis into a fly, the insanity of Seth also transforms from that of a nice young scientist to that of a criminal mastermind who just wants to fulfill his personal goals. Twilight Zone, the movie, 1983. What happens when four groundbreaking filmmakers of their time start working on a single film? The results are bound to be amazing. Twilight Zone is a 1983 science fiction anthology. The directors, John Landis, Steven Spielberg, Joe Dante, and George Miller came up with 4 different segments depicting different stories, including a futuristic society, time travel, alien invasion, the afterlife, and the cautionary stories of the future. Based on the 1960s classic TV series, this movie talks about society and the stigmas we humans carry around human civilization. It also challenges society's social norms through futuristic stories and depicts xenophobia and racism. And nothing can get scarier than the tales of humanity, where we humans are tending to disgrace our own society with our own rules. Fright Night, 1985. If you love horror movies, this might be a good option for you to revisit all over again, because, like you all, the 17-year-old Charlie Brewster is a horror film junkie who loves watching horror movies. But his life starts to change when he finds out that his new antisocial neighbor is a vampire. The vampire tries to kill Charlie, but he survives the incident by stabbing him through a cross. Then he asks for the help of a vampire hunter, Peter, to help him fight the vampire. Fright Night isn't just a movie, but a journey into the nostalgia of the 80s horror films, where the writer and director, Tom Holland, takes inspiration from the classic tales of vampires and the 80s ghost hunting shows and wrote the script of the movie keeping young audiences in mind. Filled with amazing transformation scenes of Chris Sarandon turning into a vampire and comedic performances, it's a wonderful film with a rewatchable value. Night of the Creeps, 1986. This is the only B movie in the list that's so good that it gained the popularity of a cult classic among horror fans for its honest attempt at an alien attack back in 1986. Directed by debutante director Fred Decker, it's a perfect blend of horror and comedy that depicts horror with hilarious comedic performances. When an alien spacecraft crashes onto the Earth, a slug-like creature starts infecting college kids, causing chaos on the college campus. The alien creature enters the victims and turns them into brain-hungry zombies. This movie also pays homage to classic sci-fi and horror movies while still managing to create an original film. From the know-it-all detective Ray Cameron to the lovable geeks Chris and JC, the film is filled with characters that are really charming and delightful. And let's not forget the iconic slugs, those slimy, squirming creatures that are really creepy. Gremlins, 1984. Since its release in 1984, Gremlins has become a beloved cult classic among movie lovers. This quirky creature movie, directed by Joe Dante and produced by Steven Spielberg, who also directed another movie on our list, is a masterclass in blending genres, combining elements of horror, comedy, and fantasy. When a gadget salesman finds a special gift called Mogwai, which translates to devil in Cantonese, while searching for a gift for his son, after giving him the gift, the shopkeeper warns the salesman not to expose it to bright light or water or give him any food after midnight. But the Mogwai tricks the kid into feeding him after midnight and then starts producing naughty creatures called gremlins, and they start creating a nuisance in the city. Though not primarily a horror movie, this movie depicts a cautionary tale about the importance of responsibility and what happens when you ignore the warnings. The 3 warnings also act as a metaphor for the accidental consequences of our actions. Gremlins' nostalgic charm, wonderful story, and dark sense of humor make it worth watching. Hellraiser, 1987. Human desires have no boundaries. Our desire to gain power can lead us into various unethical behaviors and violence, and Hellraiser is the perfect example of how human desires can get dangerous for us. The story revolves around a mysterious puzzle box that has the power to call the Cenobites from hell. The Cenobites are a race of sadomasochistic extraterrestrial creatures incapable of telling the difference between pleasure and pain. Doug Bradley portrays the role of Pinhead, the leader of the Cenobites, which is still considered as iconic as other horror movie creatures like Jason, Leatherface, Michael Myers, and Count Dracula. With groundbreaking special effects, impressive costumes, and production design, Hellraiser provides a chilling cinematic experience that was rare when it was first released in the late 1980s. But even after 35 years, this movie can still give you some chilling adventures in your bones. Marvelous Verdict. These classic horror movies have been the backbone of modern horror films. Because of their innovative storytelling, themes, iconic characters, and the kind of cinematic experience they offered, they're still mind-blowing, even after 40 years. Each and every film introduced some groundbreaking techniques, storylines, and visual effects that still inspire modern filmmakers to create better and original films that can turn out to be as successful as theirs. So, if you love watching horror movies, you should give them a go. So, what do you think of our top picks? Would you consider watching them all over again? Let us know in the comments section below.